Good. Hello, everybody. My name's Sue Ellam, and I'm the founder of Soulfully Connecting. Today, I'm having a long-awaited return interview with Dr. Jean Logan. Unfortunately, the last time my computer was playing up, so I had to cut it short, and we didn't hear much more about these wonderful glyphs and Holy Ground Farm. I will include the link to the previous interview before. But hello, Jean. It's lovely seeing you again. It's been a while.
Hello, Sue. Yes, it has. It's good to be talking to you again.
Yeah, I'm really pleased we could get together. Okay, so I'd like to, just in case people don't know much more about glyphs, I'd like to hear a bit more about the glyphs before we get into the Holy Ground Farm, which I know is also very important. So please let me know anything else that you've discovered about the glyphs in the time we haven't spoken.
Well, as we said before, I've got 3 books full of glyphs. There's about 94 of them. And their idea of the glyphs is to help people in their emotional healing, their physical healing, and prepare them for the 5th dimension and for ascension. And sometimes people will ask me, do I have to believe in the glyphs for them to work? And I say, no, they work fine on animals and they don't believe anything. And they say, well, how exactly do they work? And there were times I didn't really know what was the best answer. And I say, well, they work with the light of God, which is exactly what it does. The light of God comes in when you're using the glyphs and replaces whatever's being removed, whatever negative energies. But I really didn't know any more than that. Well, since that time, I've had more of a conversation. I am a conscious channel for 15 years. And I contact Source during this and get my guidance from Source. And when he clarified exactly a little what happens when the glyphs are used. As the glyphs are used on the body, it increases the light quotient, the mitochondria, the stem cells, and lengthens the telomeres. The language that is brought in is a language that organizes the atmospheric particles to facilitate an expansion of the prismatic fields and the way we use light. And when I'm talking about light, I am talking about God's light. What makes the glyphs work, the energy behind it is the light of God, period. That's it, the light of God. So what Source Energy had contacted me to do now is to upgrade the glyphs to prepare people more. For example, there's a glyph on clearing the chakras, and at the time the book was written, we were talking about 7 chakras. Now we have changed it to be 12 chakras. But I want everybody out there who has a copy of the book, all upgrades are automatically included in the book. So even if your book says 7 chakras, you will be getting the energy of clearing of the 12 chakras. That's the best example I can give, and probably the most notable. The rest are just phrases like clearing for ascension or clearing for the 5th dimension. We've just added a phrase or a sentence in there in different ones. And they're more powerful than they were. The energies are so much higher now that they're stronger than they were. And it always amazes me when people say, oh, I can feel that. You know, they take the book, and some of them get a copy and they take it to bed with them. And I think, okay, whatever works for you.
Covering all bases.
Right.
What I was really interested in is I was looking at your website, and what I was really interested in is the bit that you wrote about your ex-husband that committed suicide, and there's a glyph specifically for that. Can you explain more about that?
Right. It was very sad because he never resolved his issue with alcohol, and when he committed suicide because they were going to put him back in prison. 71 years old he was, because they couldn't keep him off the highway. They couldn't keep him off the road. And so after he committed suicide, I asked, is there anything that we can do for someone who dies in those circumstances? And so I was given the direction to create a glyph and I was told the multiple things that it would do in order to prepare them, work with that spirit to prepare them for their next mission, to clear the area where the suicide happened from any traumatic energy. And there were more things in it than that. I can't recall exactly, but it was really, it made me feel better. And it was told to take the glyph and then place a picture or the name of the person on the glyph and just leave it there for a while. And I was in contact with him spiritually to his spirit, and he thanked me for that, for doing that. So that was kind of assurance there. That doesn't mean there's no harm done. If you have a member of the family who's a traumatic death of somehow, and you feel there's some unrest there, there's no harm in using the glyph and putting their picture and name on it, because if they're happy where they are, if they're doing fine and on their way, that's fine. The worst that can happen when you use the glyphs is nothing. That's the worst that can happen. Yeah. So, and the glyphs are always putting out positive energy, and they do a lot of good for a lot of people.
I know I'm reading an awful lot at the moment. I mean, the kind of the nutritional side of things is forging forward, and people talk about telomeres and things like that. And you're mentioning that as well with the glyphs. So is it like a spiritual detox in some way?
Right, it is. It's important as we prepare. We're clearing ourselves for ascension in the fifth dimension. We must clear out all the emotional issues. You cannot ascend when you still have resentments and anger or fear. You've got to clear that out. It's also important to clear yourself out physically if you have a toxic body. It's good to follow a good, clean diet and be willing to make some changes in that and let go of the junk, junk food, and eat healthy. That's very important. And the glyphs will help with all of that and heal. Also with heal, the glyphs are great at healing. And it's important that we work on healing ourselves. The energy has never been greater for doing that. And also it's possible to just drop your karma. Just let the karma go. If you want to talk about, talk to the Akashic record keepers or God and say, God, I would like to be released of your karma, or talk to your innate. And we're entering a time when we have the power to regenerate ourselves. We have been programmed. We've been programmed to get sick, to get old and creaky and die. But we have the power of God. We are divine. Now, does it make any sense that we get so bent out of shape and old and creaky, and yet we have the power of God? It doesn't quite mesh there. So we do have the power to regenerate ourselves. We even have the power to regenerate parts of our body that have been surgically removed. If we let go of the belief, it's not possible. But we've been conditioned. We've literally been programmed. The very cells of our body has been programmed. And not by us. So now we need to take over, and we want to reprogram our bodies to the beliefs that serve us rather than the beliefs that do not serve us. So be thinking about what beliefs do we have that do not serve us, okay? When you hear something, is it empowering or is it disempowering? Is it to inform you or is it to control you? Does it make you feel good or does it bring in fear? So a lot of stuff we hear is for the purpose of fear. I mean, every time, a new virus, we need to get, I wouldn't touch a flu shot. I wouldn't touch these little wipey things too. Bacteria is big business. It's big business. And don't buy into it. I don't get sick. I do not ever get a cold or a flu. I haven't had one for maybe over 15 years because I have given up buying into the propaganda. If you believe you can catch things, you turn yourself into a walking culture medium. Believe in your health and believe in your power. that is probably the most important thing, is believe in your power.
I totally agree with you. Many years ago, I worked in the place that people were always sick, and they said, "You'll never." I said, "No, I don't get sick. I don't believe in it." And I never got sick. And there's people coughing and sneezing all around. But also, I wouldn't touch a flu shot. They'd have to strap me down. But I've also noticed that there's a lot more information out there now, which you can't get away from it. And I've been, just over the last few days, I've been watching a lot of videos about water fasting and all these different things, and it's fascinating. And it gave me a lot more information, because people kind of would automatically say, "Oh, it's dangerous, you can't do it." But there's so much science behind it, and I find it fascinating listening to all the things that will lose big companies a lot of money, because people will clear themselves, their body. I was reading, I was kind of listening to videos of Dr. Jason Fung. He wrote a book. I don't know if you heard about it was about the guide to fasting or something like that. Can't remember off the top of my head. But he was talking about people just that could get rid of diabetes, literally.
Really?
In weeks. And just by not feeding their bodies all the time. It was fascinating. So he's really
giving your pancreas a rest. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's such an interesting thing. So you're doing kind of the spiritual equivalent to a water fast, really. I bet you've never kind of heard it like that before.
Never thought about it that way, but I can remember my second husband and I fasted. We did a fasting and a colonic for a week, and it was hell. I'm okay with maybe like a juice fast, but going just water, you could get a headache, and I'm not fond of that idea. So if I did a fast again, it would just be a juice. I try to eat a lot of raw foods anyway. Just this morning, I've just had nothing but grapefruit and a shake with bananas and peaches.
I did a 21-day juice fast, and I felt very well on it. But I think after about 2 or 3 days, you don't feel the hunger. So it's headaches aren't fun.
No.
No, that's fascinating. So how are your cards going with the glyphs? I know that you never
see them. People love them, and I'm afraid I didn't have enough made. I was kind of a big chicken and only had 1,000 made, and I'm afraid we're going to run out. But I try to encourage people to not think of them as a substitute for the books. And people want to get the cards, and they say, "Oh, I got the cards, and they're working great." And I think, well, because the cards, each card has one glyph on. And sometimes in the book, like if you want to cleanse your liver, you might use 4 of them and take them from the book. It has a page of 16. So you would cut off 4 and put them under your rib cage along with the parasite glyphs to clean out your liver. You can't do that with the cards. One woman wrote a review on Amazon. She gave me 5 stars, but she said, well, you might laminate them because they'll fray if you're going to use them on the body. And I thought, well, I don't know. They're beautiful cards, and they're really not designed to be taping them on your body anywhere. So I encourage people to at least get 1 book, but they're selling really well. People love them. So that's fine. But I do encourage them to at least get 1 book so they can understand. But I tell them there's a free glyph on my website, and that will help them understand with actually a free glyph to remove fear, which fear is a big one.
You mentioned you put like 16 different glyphs copies. So what do you do with the, I'm sure you cover this in your book and everything, but what do you do with the glyphs once you've used them once? Can you use them again, or?
Yes, you can use them again. I tell people, if they, especially if they buy ebooks, and a lot of people in other countries, like people in England, they do buy a lot of ebooks, and because the shipping is so expensive for the printed ones. But they can take, when they print them out, I say print the table of contents so you see what's in all the books so you understand. Then when you print out a page of the glyphs, and you use a glyph, what I get is a transparent fishing tackle box, a little fishing tackle box. And if they're in good shape, if they're damaged, tear them in half and throw them away. But if they're in good shape, and especially if you get a really more expensive, high quality paper, they'll last longer. Then you can just put them in the fishing tackle box or the vitamin box, whatever you want. And that you can use them again. And someone asks, can someone else in the family use them? Yes, they're not contaminated. They're not, there's nothing that's going to affect them. So yes, they can be used again, especially like if you're using them under your feet, you're going to use eight of them. And certainly you want to be able to use them over again. If you put them under a knit booty and when you go to bed or something.
Okay, thank you. That's good to know. Are you planning any more books for glyphs?
Yes, I was told. I was even given the title. Every time I finish, I think that's it. I really don't want to do anymore. And then I think, then I'm getting more glyphs right now. And I was told the title of the next book is to be Symbols of the New Age, or was it the Golden Age? I have to look. I think of the New Age. And so I thought, okay, so I'm going to, there will be another book, and I think, okay, this one will just be an ebook. I don't want to go through the printing. That is expensive, but I'll do what I have to do at the time, whatever I have to do. There are a lot of people who do like the printed book. A lot of people do both, so they can from the ebooks, and
it's making a lot of difference in people's lives, because I've read a few of your testimonials, and it's quite incredible.
I don't believe it myself. Sometimes I don't believe it. I think, oh wow, are they really? It's really helping that much, and I feel like, who's doing this? I mean, who is involved in this?
Yeah.
But one thing I also want to do, and I'm hoping someone comes into my life that will help me, is to do T-shirts. Sue and I were just talking earlier about the picture behind us. There was an artist by the name of Don Gordon, who was a dear, wonderful friend. And before he died, he gave me rights to use all of his paintings in any way to help to fund the children's fund that we're working with. And so I thought, oh, T-shirts would be nice. And people said even little cards or something. And so that's something I would like to see down the road. And even people have recommended tattoos. And I think that's a great idea. But again, that takes time to work with. So I'm telling the universe, send me some help. Send me some help. And it will come. It will come at the right time.
It will. If anyone's out there that can, sorry to interrupt. Sorry, I didn't mean to. So if anyone's out there that can help Jean with T-shirts and things,
they feel, sometimes I just this morning talked to this woman. She sent me an email and she says, I'm supposed to be working with you. I hope she's right.
It is. Everything comes at the right time.
Right. Absolutely.
And then it's a perfect thing.
Right.
So we'll go on to Holy Ground Farm now, because you just mentioned that.
Right.
I know that it's children in Nepal and Peru, I believe.
Well, we were working with someone in Peru, and right now that is kind of finalized, because the school we were supporting, the city put a school in right next door, so we didn't need to. They didn't need the help anymore, and the family the man that was running a home for a bunch of the children, they're all older now, and he's older, and he's not involved in anymore. So I think unless we get a calling, if we get someone, some reason, but right now what we're getting a calling for is to help some children in Uganda.
Okay.
So we just this morning I forwarded some money to help them out, and of course, before I get too involved, I'm going to have to investigate real carefully, because when you go into these foreign countries, you have to check things out real well. I sent my son to Nepal to check out the orphanage before we invested more than just a little money in it, and to make sure everything was on the up and up, because you have to be very careful when you do these things overseas. You have to be sure of what you're doing. And my goal is pretty much most of everything I earn, besides I do pay for my painting and my supplies and everything, but pretty much everything goes to help the children, because there is such a need there. There are so many homeless children in the world. I can't even begin to think, there's no way. I mean, there's millions but we can just do a little bit here. What if we do any little bit, if everybody would just do a little bit? And one of the things I've noticed when I started, not many people donate. At first, no one did. I'm getting more donations now, which is wonderful, and I really appreciate it. But I see that when people start using the glyphs, then they're more apt to donate, because the glyphs really remove this fear of not having enough. Within so many people, they hesitate to support anything outside themselves, because they have this fear they're not going to have enough. And once that fear is gone, they're able to be a little bit more generous and trusting. You have to be trusting that God will take care of us, whatever you want to call it, universe or source or the energy. I find when I do things like I constructed a chapel where I empower the glyphs. It's on a powerful vortex that's very healing. And when I was building it, when it was having it built, I kept thinking, well, I'm going to have to go into my retirement fund probably. And I never did. I just kept getting the bills, and I kept paying them, and I kept paying them. And I don't know where the money was coming from, but I never touched my retirement to build that chapel. So, and money, I have no problem with money. And one of the glyphs in there is to remove what stands in our way from abundance. So it certainly seems to be working for me, because I have no problem, and the books are selling well, and it's just so I will say, okay, send me some more children that need help, and that's when I got in touch with this one from Uganda. So, and I have this dream right now. I'm on about 100 acres of land here, and across the road we have another 58 acres that we donated to the nonprofit. And my dream, my thought is I would picture a center for special needs children there. And I just have to keep believing it will happen. I thought, well, we got the land, and then somebody contacted us, a neighbor who drives a bulldozer, and he said, well, your trees fell down from this hurricane, Opal. How about if I go up and harvest the trees, give you part of the money, and I'll put in roads for you? And I thought, okay, okay. So we now have roads there, and now we have a campground there. So I just have to trust that it will all come in divine time. I find if you push for things and try to make things happen, you can mess things up. So I'm just turning it all over to the spiritual guidance I receive, or whatever, and have to let that go.
I feel very much the same. In fact, I've kind of written a few articles and things about it. It's about this kind of this go, go, go culture that you've got to push, you've got to jump up and down so people see you. And I think that, I'm very much of the build it and they will come. It might,
right. Yes.
It might be a slower process, but I find I'm always looked after as well. So, something, it always comes from somewhere. But I think where, people donating, I think a lot of the problem is that people are getting disillusioned with a lot of the charities, because so much money is taken onto admin or
Yes, yes.
salaries and stuff, and the people aren't getting the benefit. And I think that's, and people kind of tarring them all with one brush, and I think that's part of it as well.
Right, right. There's a lot of that in the United States. The big names, any big name charity, you've got somebody up at the top receiving hundreds of thousands of dollars in their pay,
Yeah.
and sometimes over $1 million. There are people who are getting over $1 million to run a charity. What's wrong with that picture?
Yeah.
What's wrong with that picture? So that's, if you've heard of it, if it's a big name, I have to, like in Nepal, we are working right directly with the individuals there that run the orphanages and that the manage, and because one of the problems in the small countries, there's such corruption. What happens is the government wants to take some of the money. So you have to find a way to get the money there without getting involved in their government, and not send too much at a time, or said, different names or something. You have to work around that, which is sad but true. And I can only hope and believe, and I believe that better times are slowly coming. I certainly, in the United States, there's I think a big shakeup coming, and I'm just praying and that things are going to be better, not just for the United States but other countries too. Yeah. That the children, there was such poverty and corruption that things are going to be cleaned up as time goes by.
I think we've reached the tipping point, haven't we? I mean,
yes.
I first started reading about the changes about 30 years ago, and so I knew these times were coming, but things are happening so quick, so fast, and
right.
People are just basically, I think that they're just having had enough. And
yes.
Before, it was a case of, well, if it doesn't affect me, then that's okay. But more and more people are being affected now by decisions that are being made. So there is definitely a tipping point and a very strange energy that's around.
It's gotten so bad that people are well aware of it now with the internet and different social media where they see things happening, and where people get out and they're protesting in the streets because of injustice or something is going on. And then you have the police coming and spraying them with tear gas and pepper spray and stuff. So people are getting alarmed. What used to be the police force was here to help people. Now it's just it's turned into a military affront. Actually, nobody trusts the police anymore. When you're pulled over, you think, "Oh my God, am I going to live through this?" Especially for the people of color. It's terrible what's happening. It's terrible, but it's
and
going to.
And it must be so difficult for the really good-hearted policemen out there, because they all get hard with the same brush, don't they?
Yes, that's true. That's true. Yes, it's because there's a lot of good policemen out there, but well, time is, I know it's changing. I know it's going to change, and those who are corrupt are going to be falling by the wayside or cleaned up somehow. The golden age can't come without that happening.
Yeah, you see it in lots of different countries. I think in Saudi Arabia, there's a big
yes, right.
So it's happening all over in different places.
In Iceland, where they fired the bankers.
Sorry?
They threw all the bankers out and fired their officials.
Yeah, absolutely. So I also have great hope for the future, because I noticed ever since I started working with Soulfully Connecting, going back about 4 or 5 years, the idea came, and the more I've looked, the more I see how many wonderful people doing fantastic work are out there, but you don't see it in mainstream media. It's things that you have to look for.
Yeah, the news is, unfortunately, all the news is corrupt. The big newscasters, it's all they tell you. It's kind of okay. We're going to tell you what we want you to believe, type of thing.
Yeah.
And so I go to a lot of alternative news sources, and they're getting upset because people aren't watching at the big ones anymore. You know, CNN and ABC and all that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's.
I don't know how it's the BBC. I'm not sure whether that's the same.
I don't watch the news. I don't.
Oh,
I
no,
don't.
I don't.
And
I don't have a television.
No, I don't have television.
Oh,
If I want entertainment, I watch Netflix or something like that.
they call it programming for a reason.
Yeah. Yeah. No, a few years ago, I got rid of my television license because I found when I looked through all the programs, there was only about 3 or 4 things that I'd actually want to watch. You know, I'm not into soap operas or the kind of real life.
Right. Do you have to get a license to have television?
Yeah, we have a license to pay. I can't remember. I think it's. I mean, I'm sure somebody will call me on it, but I think it was about 130 odd pound a year or something like that. But I never didn't watch it, so I just
Yeah. Right.
and watch, have Netflix, or choose what I want to watch when I want to watch it. But anything I hear on the news, I get through YouTube because I'm always online. So I can't, the important stuff.
Right.
Obviously you've got sensationalist stuff as well, but the important stuff I hear about because I will see it online. But I don't bother with the news. I don't believe half of it.
Right. Yeah, I've kind of there are a couple on YouTube that will tell us the latest thing of what's going on, and so I'm the same way. And then I have the spiritual sites too that cry on and things like that are really uplifting and trying to be helpful to us and how can we prepare. So I watch those, and I do get on Facebook a lot because my children talked me into Facebook. Years ago, they wanted to say, oh, you can see our pictures and all this. And I was glad I did because all of a sudden I was connecting with a niece I hadn't seen in a long time. But then I got the idea of running an ad for one of my books on Facebook. And in no time, I was selling books all over the country. I mean, all over the world. And I mean, the first one, there was some woman in Ireland wrote something on the page. She says, oh, you've got to see this book to believe it. And I thought, and some woman from Egypt had me on her internet show. So it just happened like that. But then now that I'm helping out these children in Nepal and the ones in Uganda, I connect with them on Facebook. We send messages and he sends pictures and we can actually talk on Facebook. Yes. So that's an important thing right now. I think the important thing is it's a tool, but don't get caught up in it. Facebook could be addictive. Social media could be addictive. So we have to be careful of the time we spend there. And I see a lot of well-meaning people who are posting there all the time. And I thought, okay, if that's all you got to do, that's maybe people came in the world just to sit and post on Facebook or whatever, LinkedIn, whatever it is.
Yeah, you don't get other things done, do you?
No, that's the thing. I just had to say, okay, 5 minutes to check this, and that's it.
Well, I'm very glad you spent so much time with me, Jean.
Well, I should be helping. I really feel guilty because I'm not putting more onto your site. And so I'll have to put a little note when I write something to get it out to you.
Okay.
And maybe put something out about the nonprofit and the pictures of the kids.
That would be. Well, you can set up a nonprofit listing on there, and then I can circulate it. So yeah. So we'll talk about doing that because that crossed my mind earlier. Spreading the word. No, it's fantastic, and I was looking on your site, and there's some nice buildings in the North Carolina. that have been put up, and so is it functional for people yet, or is it? You said you're going to set it up for special needs. How long?
No, right now it's just vacant land, except for it has an outhouse in a spring for the picnic. The camping area would be primitive camping only. So there's nothing on that yet at this time. So when people come and visit, someone stays. There's an apartment downstairs, and then I have. Just had someone who wanted to meet me. I have people who drive quite a ways to come and meet me. And I just asked Spirit about it, and I let them spend a couple nights here. And but there's nothing. Sometimes they come to sleep in the chapel too, because the chapel has a powerful vortex there. That's a healing vortex that they want to spend nighttime. It's a very powerful healing vortex. You could feel the earth was literally working on you. And in the chapel, we've got a mattress or a pad on the floor where they can sleep right close to the earth. And that's where you feel the intensity.
Oh, fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is. And so people want to come and spend the night there, and then they make a donation. And that's nice. And it has a little wood burning stove in there. And so it's comfortable.
Yeah,
and comfortable. They enjoy it. They're right out in the middle of the woods. Right.
That sounds wonderful. I wish I was closer.
Yeah.
maybe one day.
Yes, right. Yeah, you never know. I'm waiting for when we know we have the ability to move from one area to another a lot faster than flying through the air in the tin can with the fossil fuel running it,
Yeah.
And I'm waiting for that day, because it's the children in Nepal. They keep saying, "When are you going to come over here? When are you going to come over here? Where is this?" And to fly to Nepal, that's a good 24 hours in the plane, and you can't even fly direct. You have to go to India first, or and somewhere. So, and I'm not into flying 24 hours in a plane. I'm not. It doesn't excite me. So it'll happen. It'll happen.
I can't. I haven't got the geography in my mind, to be honest. So this might be a stupid statement or question. But can you do it? Can you do it by ship? Go by ship to the nearest place and then overland from there.
It would take a long time. I've never been on a cruise, and I don't know that I suppose there's ships that just go like from here to England. Perhaps that's so. I don't know. I certainly would be more comfortable. Sometimes in these planes, they pack you in like sardines.
Yeah.
Unless you can afford to fly first class.
Yes.
So I'm not sure, but that's a thought I had.
That would be my choice of travel. Yeah.
No.
Jean, it's been wonderful talking to you. I look forward to hearing about your next book coming out, and more about Holy Ground Farm. But we'll talk anyway about your nonprofit and everything like that. But anyway, anybody that wants to get in touch with Jean, can you please give us your details, Jean?
Okay. First of all, let me give you the website, which is Dr. Jean Logan. That's DrJeanLogan.com. And then they can write me an email at Holy Ground Farm. That's HOLYGROUNDFARM @gmail.com.
That's great. So anybody that either can, so we've got a few requests here. Anybody that knows about kind of sorting out T-shirts, anybody that wants to help build stuff, anybody that's knows about children that are in need. So Jean's a person to contact.
Well, there's a lot of stuff's going to be happening here. The field is wide open, but I'm looking for adventuresome people that don't mind a bit of the wilderness right now, because that's what we got is wilderness here.
Well, you never know. There's lots of people that I've been following the tiny house movement, and
Oh yes, yes, that's really great.
yeah, and you never know. You could end up with some kind of tiny house people that just
Right. I think you still have the same problem of homeless over there
yeah
that we have.
yeah.
That right. Uh-huh. Yes, I see that. The tiny houses seem to be in, even for people who aren't home, who just want, compact space and
Absolutely, or people living in their vans and just traveling and
right, right, or want to live in town when sometimes living in town can be tremendously expensive. But
yeah.
when they got a little apartment that's that big, why? they,
I know. I know. Jean, again, it's been wonderful talking to you. And so if anybody wants to read what I said, Jean is an author on Soulfully Connecting. You can find her there on www.soulfully-connecting.com. So it's myself, Sue Ellam, and Dr. Jean Logan, signing off. And thank you very
okay.
much.
Thank you, Sue, and many blessings to everybody out there. Blessings to you, Sue.
Thank you very much, and goodbye, everybody. It's been a pleasure being here with Jean. Bye.